You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Friday night in Whistler. It just started snowing for the first time in the valley this
Cheers
season.
to that. You got an engineer out of his cave.
You just rolled into town like an hour or two ago?
Yeah, just a couple hours. So
Sweet.
fresh into Whistler. It's snowing outside.
Thanks for bringing it. I'll give you credit.
Yeah, you got it. It was dumping in Utah, and then got on the plane, flew over some Bluebird, and then just socked in, and it's raging out here.
Yes, I'm excited. It's kind of funny. It's like I've talked to a lot of people that come out for IF3. Like we're here for IF3 this weekend, and a lot of people are like, I've never been to Whistler before. It's like it's almost a shame that they're here in October. You know,
Yeah.
It's great, but at the same time, it's like you're gonna have to come back now.
I know, man. I really need to. And I just never thought I'd be in Whistler not for skiing. It's kind of bizarre being here. I mean, it's kind of for skiing, but I'm not skiing.
Yeah, right? No, exactly. But now, have you ever been here before?
I went once, in maybe 2017 or 2016 for a couple days. I was coaching Big Mountain at the time.
Were you doing it was summertime, like the summer camps?
No,
Like
it
Momentum?
was winter. It was the spring, and the Big Mountain teams were competing in their championships, like the under 18.
Oh,
So
like
I was-
Freeride clubs.
Yeah, I
Oh,
coached
okay.
that for years.
Oh, sweet. That's why. Okay, before we started, we were just talking about the Freeride guide, and you were like, "Oh, I'm huge on FWT. I like talking about
Yeah.
that stuff." That's why, because you're involved in it.
Yeah, I coached for 4 or 5 years. So guys like Alex Lundstrom, like Max Meza, they were dudes that I kind of mentored in Utah.
Yep.
And then came out to Whistler for their championships one time. We had such a good group of people up there, and saw names that are becoming so much bigger now. And the guys on the Freeride World Tour, getting to see them compete when I saw them 18 years old.
or 15 years old, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got a huge Freeride club here that Derek Foose runs. He's my co-host, and he's actually broadcast announcer for FWT, but he started the Freeride club here. And you get names like Marcus Gogan and Wei Tian Ho
Right.
and Tom Pfeiffer and Livia McNeil, some big names like Logan Peyote, you know what I mean?
Huge names coming out of here.
coming out. So it's
If there is
a cool program.
one club to be out of Whistler Freeride is probably
One of them, yeah. Tahoe's
that
got
top tier.
Tahoe's got a really great club
Yeah.
too. Rosignol Rosalind is really starting to pick up. Nelson has a huge Whitewater. Have you skied there?
I did. Yeah, I've been there a couple times.
That little mountain,
Uh-huh.
but it just produces absolute ninjas. Like Sam Cooch
Yeah.
and his brother and a handful of others from there that you're just watching, and it's did that guy just lace a cork 7 into the trees and just grease this transition, which is the little slope beside the track road, you know what I mean? There's no park or whatever. These guys are just whipping
Yeah.
themselves to the trees, finding their spots.
You can get humbled so quick there. It lures you in. There's all this mellow terrain and fun pillows and everything that you hike to. And then you just step up, get all emboldened, go to some face, and then just be like, oh shit, this did not look like that from the bottom.
I think I might be in over my head a little bit.
Yeah, that happened to me there for sure.
Oh, you have to come back and ski here because this place really is something different.
Dude, now I know where you live, so I'm dropping in.
Yeah, this couch has got your name on it, man. Anytime. But so I every time, so I feel spoiled, and I've said this many times. Every time because I've skied here my whole life. Every time I'd go somewhere else, I'd be a little underwhelmed, only because I'm so spoiled. Because it's not only Whistler, which is a huge mountain, but then there's Blackcomb as well, which is another huge mountain. So whenever
Dude, you just shut your face now, man.
Yeah.
That's just too much.
But whenever somebody
that's
comes,
insane.
and they're like, "Holy crap!" and I'm like, "I'm going to show you as much as I can because we can't get to it all." But
Yeah.
I want you to see how rad this place is, and I want you to come back, and I also want you to just stop talking about how great your place is. No, I'm kidding. No, there's, like I said, all the
I'll
other
take you to Bristol, New York, where I grew up. And,
Yeah.
we'll humble you real quick on a tiny hill.
Do you know I've never skied back east, and I wanted to ask you about that. I've been to Burlington, but it was just after IF3 at around the same time. So it's I've been to places like that, but didn't ski. But I'd like to go just to experience it. Like, I feel like I need to, like, I'm kind of a, a fair weather, not a fair weather skier, but like a fair conditions skier, or a prime conditions or prime terrain skier, I guess. I've been spoiled out here, living out in BC. So I've never really had a reason to go, say, back east, or, Quebec or New York or Vermont or any of those places, because why wouldn't I just stay out here? But I
feel that.
But I think as someone who loves, like, skiing as the culture, and I've, like, created this thing where I talk to so many people, and the love and the passion that comes from people that learn to ski on the East Coast, in my opinion, is unrivaled.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. I mean, we'll probably get into it later, but like growing up, I mean, it takes a lot to get you to shovel snow from ice rinks and session rails. Like, that doesn't happen when you have POW days, like 100 days of the year, and big mountains.
It does happen sometimes here early season, because we got the ice rink, and the frothers will get after it, but they don't have to do it for very long.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they still do that.
Yeah.
You got to put in that work at some point.
I agree. So tell me a little bit about you. So obviously you're one of you said 5 Dadali kids.
Yeah.
Right? And you used to be known as Ahmet's brother.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was like kind of a self-chosen nickname, kind of not self-chosen.
Right. So he's your older brother?
Yeah, he's 2 years older.
Right. So he got into skiing before you then?
No, we got in at the same time.
Right. Then why didn't you just go? Was it kind of a joke thing?
Yeah, after a while, like when he moved to the West, he moved like 2 years before me. He started filming with like Level 1 and Rage, these different companies.
Yeah.
So he got more known like out here in these places, whereas I was still like competing and filming in the East Coast.
Right.
And when I came out, I would just be introduced to everyone and say like, yo, this is Ahmet's brother.
Right, right.
And so like after a while, you're like, man, fuck this. I'm tired of being like Ahmet's brother. And like one day, like some person just came up to me at the resort and they're like, yo, you're Ahmet's brother, right? And it just kind of clicked in my head where I was like, yeah, I'm Ahmet's brother. That's me. And so I just built this like whole brand around it for a while. Like we did like pro model skis that just have like the Ahmet's brother collab on it.
Oh,
like,
for real?
Yeah, we did like 4 of those ski graphics with J skis, and like anywhere I could put that name in the media, I did it. And from magazines, like there was a Free Skier article of like the brother.
Yeah.
And it was just all around that. I think Kevin Luby wrote that. And my Instagram handle for years. But then after a while, like built enough of a brand around my name where I was like, it's time to switch back.
Yeah, or just like create it. Because I didn't really know what your name was. I knew because I could read it. Like I just learned how to pronounce your name the other day. It's Giray.
Damn.
I've been saying it. I've probably said it 1,000 times in the last 3 days in my head, just so I could get it right. Is it spelled Giray? That's how you'd spell it phonetically, or Giray, but it's Giray.
Exactly.
I almost screwed it up there.
Yeah.
I'm almost there.
You're thinking too hard.
Yeah. Any other? You said you had 5. You said you have 4 siblings.
I'm the last of 5.
Right. Yeah. So is it just like the others? I'm sure were skiers too, or were they as enthused?
Yeah. Everyone skied.
Sisters too.
2 sisters, 1 way oldest brother, and all of us skied. Other people in my family didn't ski, so it was just more of like something that came about because we lived in a little valley with a ski hill down the road, and that's just what kids did in the area.
Where was it? What was it called?
It was in Bristol, New York.
Yeah.
And so it's like an hour from Rochester, pretty close to Buffalo.
What's the resort called? What's the area called?
Yeah, the resort's called Bristol.
Oh, it is actually. Bristol. Yeah.
Yeah. So just in that Bristol Valley, and my older brothers and sisters, they skied. Like there's ski clubs where they could just get off the bus there, and it's cheaper than daycare, so
right,
works out.
I know because Devin Logan is here this week too, and I know like I've talked to CeeLo and like Parker, and they went to like skiing high school.
Dude, yeah, they had the setup. Like we did not go to anything like that. We just went to like a normal ass like public school out in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York.
Yeah,
and
skiing on weekends and stuff.
It was just like the school bus, literally from the town I went to school in 15 miles away. My house was on like the other side of the mountain from there, so it'd go by the ski hill every day. Daycare was at the resort, and I could get dropped off there as a little kid for daycare. And then as I grew older, it was like, oh well, why don't you just go skiing?
Oh,
because
awesome.
Like. Yeah, you go ski at the hill, you come home late, like we had night skiing. So like kind of everyone in that area would get into it.
Yeah.
And like my mom picked up a job there to be able to afford to get us like lift passes and that sort of thing.
Employee discounts kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't like like people in the Northeast, a lot of them went to these academies. Like we wouldn't have anything like that near us in New York.
Right.
And so, yeah, people would like ship off their kids to these ski academies. And like growing up, Vermont, New Hampshire and all that was like literally like for us coming from New York to that was like a person in the Northeast going out west to ski. Like it was dreamland in Vermont, New Hampshire for us to ever take a trip there.
Very cool. And then like it's interesting how many conversations I've had with people that have been on this show that had that similar experience where it was like, well, we just got dropped off at that's where we spent our afternoons. That's where our parents knew we were. We just went skiing. We hung out at the lodge. We went skiing every day. We got dropped off after school. And I think it's just that thing where I ski every day and I'm just good now.
Yeah. You don't need, like, if you ski a lot, you don't need the best mountain to get good and like fall in love with it. You just need to ski nonstop all the time. And it's weird, like when you go to these like bigger cities like Salt Lake, I feel like you lose touch with that so much of like, you're not just going to go take the school bus and go ski. Like it's not part of it. It's just too big of a city. It's not this like a hometown thing that people do, like where you can just get dropped off at a place and play hockey.
Yeah, unless you live in like a resort like Whistler, like there's a bunch of kids that grew up here, like Kai Peterson and like Austin Ross and the Pettits. You know what I mean? Like they lived in Whistler and grew up here. And
That's so crazy.
They would get time off, like they would get a day off to go skiing or afternoons here and there. But and that's what you were alluding to. Was kind of what I was referring to with like the passion of like the East Coast skiers is that out here we kind of take it for granted. It's there, it's good, it's awesome. Whereas there you got to work for it, right? If you're really into it, you got to put some energy in to get as much out of it as you can because it doesn't on the surface have a lot to offer. But when you start working on it, it has so much to offer.
You know, once that little like carve around the lift pole gets carved in just enough, it becomes a jump. And if you keep hitting it every day more and more, it becomes a bigger jump. Yeah, so you got to put in that work and time until you can catch 3 feet of air to flat.
Yeah, and you're like, do you see that? And then you start throwing it. You're starting a 180 eventually, and then you get to a 3, and then
no doubt. Or like when the snow gun blows snow on the side of the trail on some rocks, they might turn into micro pillows. Yeah. Just saying.
Oh, getting after it.
That was my first ones.
That's sweet, man. So your brother, does this thing. He's starting to get a little bit of notice. And then did you kind of move out here as well, or did you kind of stay back home?
No, as soon as I finished high school, I moved to Utah.
Yeah. And then do you have an engineering degree? Is that right?
Yeah, I moved to Utah to go to the University of Utah. Went to mechanical engineering school there.
So the classic, hey, I'm ready to move west, go to school, go to a school that I can go access the mountains.
For sure. It was kind of like the only way that I could get to the west was like a route through schooling, pretty much. Like I could, have a place to stay, like get that education, like food, a lot of it covered from like, I was a smart kid in school. So academically, I got scholarships.
Amazing.
That covered most of it.
Yep. Fantastic. And do you work as an engineer now?
Yeah, now I work as an engineer across a lot of spectrums in skiing. So I own a company called Daymaker Touring. And so
you own the company?
Co-founded it with a buddy. Me and him, he's an industrial designer. I'm a mechanical engineer. We started that in like 2016, making alpine ski touring adapters. I do the ski engineering for J Skis, run all the engineering there, do some forefront ski engineering. And there's stuff outside of that as well in engineering.
Decent.
So, kind of like a whole world surrounded by it.
That's cool. I want to dive into this a bit more. So I want to ask you about the Daymakers, which is a great name because we all know what the Day Wrecker. So a lot of the younger generation that may not know about Day Wreckers, this is before like Salomon came out with like their Guardian, like those kind of hybrid like downhill touring bindings that made things a little easier, right? Like I'm not necessarily talking like the pin bindings like Marker or Dynafits, but this is like the first kind of like downhill / backcountry binding was like, I guess the Guardian really. But before that, if you wanted to keep your downhill bindings on and like have your performance on those skis and you wanted to get the backcountry, you had these things called Day Trekkers. We just called them Day Wreckers because it was kind of an adapter that you plugged in and they weren't great. if it was a mellow tour, maybe you'd get up, but there's almost guaranteed to
Yeah.
have something go wrong.
Something
was going
screw
wrong.
was falling out.
Something was going wrong. So have you basically improved on that concept?
Partly, yes. So yeah, I had plenty of days wrecked leading up to it, and then we were like, all right, like me and Chris Trunick were like, yeah, it's time we make these things better. Let's make a day out of it. So it came up originally with what we call the Daymaker Classic, and it's similar to the Trekker, attaches to your boot, plugs into a downhill binding. Fundamentally, yes, it's the same, but we changed it from a single pivot point to a 4-bar linkage. So that single pivot point...
Dumb it down for me.
Yeah. Like a single pivot point works like a door hinge, and they just used simple screws on the front that could like back out really easy. And it's a great concept. Like, sweet, let's get walking on your downhill equipment. I love the concept, but it was just could be improved.
It was primitive.
Primitive. Yeah. And so we thought, okay, there's a couple problems here. You always slam your toe piece or your heel piece of your binding, and fundamentally you can't change that about a single pivot. And secondly, you're walking in hard boots, so your body mechanics are different. And if your pivot point is in front of your toe by an inch or a couple inches, there's a lot of torque to overcome. It's a pretty unnatural way to walk. And that's why the frame bindings were so awful.
Right.
Like, not only were you lifting a frame with an entire heel piece and binding on every step, you're also like pivoting 2 inches in front of your toe on those things. The amount of torque is insane on your body, and you're definitely going to be hurting with your knees the next day. So we designed a 4-bar linkage that has this like elliptical motion. It rocks forward and back. So as you lean forward, this hinge will naturally roll underneath the ball of your foot, and it will scoot your boot away from your toe piece so you don't hit your toe piece. And then as it shifts forward on your way down, it misses your heel piece.
Oh, instantly.
So
It's interesting. So like if this is the front of your binding, instead of it just going like this and like that, basically as you're going up, it slides back.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does exactly this.
Yeah.
So it's this rocking motion.
Cool.
And what that also does is this 4-bar linkage, to get like real nerdy, it's got a virtual pivot point, so that this pivot point is constantly shifting further and further back in your foot as you go through that walking motion. And that makes it easier to walk with a non-walk mode boot. In a walk mode boot, you've got these like mechanics in your ankle that are functioning. But when you're in a hard boot, you've taken that away. And so it's all like coming from the knee at that point, and the hips and everything. So giving you that 4-bar linkage motion, it helps with that shifting virtual center point to kind of give you back this faux motion into your ankle area. It makes walking way easier and less strenuous on your body.
If you're not in like a walk mode boot.
Exactly.
And is that like, cause you're more of an urban kind of park guy, right? More or less, like this to generalize you, right?
Yeah. When I got into everything, for sure.
And so you're not
like 20.
So you're not getting a boot with a walk mode on it.
Yeah, exactly. And at that
time,
there weren't any boots with a walk mode unless you were in telly, right? Like when we first had Trekkers,
right?
They didn't have walk mode boots.
And rear entries and
and then like Dynafit started coming out with these boots with like pins and everything, and it's still like very specialized. And then even when we started Daymaker Touring, like 2015, 2016, I mean, I had like a K2 spine at the time, just totally obliterated the walk mode mechanism. I mean, the amount of play in these boots and the walk modes was crazy. Like you could not ski at a high level in that and feel comfortable and say use that same boot in the park or anywhere else. So you would be walking on your downhill boot, something that you could take in the park or take in the backcountry too and ride big lines.
Yeah, very, very cool. So how did the original like idea, how was the original idea formed? Was it like having beers with a buddy one day, or you just like, did you have like a catastrophic like failure in your equipment one day and you're like, I need to take care of this?
I'd say it came from different angles. So like Chris's path into it was a little bit different than mine.
Full name?
This is Chris Trunick.
Yep.
So this is my partner at Daymaker Touring. And so my path into it was more like I'd gone out and I'd be hitting backcountry jumps, and I'd be touring up on Trekkers with like, or touring up on like a Duke even, because trekkers just fell apart.
Right.
And then I'd have like a jump ski on my back for some of these like iconic things.
Because the Dukes are heavy, right? You don't want the big heavy Duke on the, but then you're not wanting to stomp on those things.
Yeah, like hitting backcountry jumps on it was just like not that good. And if you're only going like a quarter mile or a half mile up Grizzly Gulch, it's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I took trekkers out in a Wolverine Cirque one day and they just kind of snapped in half. And it was waist deep that day, and I had to boot pack my way out waist deep.
True day wrecker.
Exactly. And so I was like, man, these things got to be made better. And then in like 2014 or so, I moved in with Chris Trunick, and he was like, hey, man, I got to show you these things I was working on. So I went into his garage, and he had these prototypes made from wood and aluminum that was basically a trekker, but with a 4-bar linkage in it.
Right.
And to him, I don't know,
And does he have the same sort of background in engineering and that sort of thing?
He has an industrial design background. He's a skier.
Yeah.
He wasn't like, competing like professionally or anything like that in skiing like I was, but he's like very passionate skier.
Yeah.
And he showed me these things. I think he'd gone out walking on them a little bit, but he like when I saw those things, I was like, dude, yes, this is it. Like between me and engineering and you and this design, like we can take this so much further. Like people would love this. We can make this legit. And at first it seemed like this is just kind of like a side project he was working on. And like, I was like, it's time for this side project to become like your forefront project.
Yeah. Hey man, you're going to do this full time. I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So originally kind of his original idea. And then you were like, hey, this makes a lot of sense to me. And then how many kind of like prototypes did you start? Obviously it was wood and it was like the wooden prototype. And you're like, hey, did you like whip up the CAD, like the AutoCAD and like start doing designs? And what was the process of like getting it to at least the first like commercially viable version?
Yeah, it took us probably like a year to take it from that wooden prototype into something commercial. And so while we lived together, like the amount of time was unlimited. We were just on CAD, on SolidWorks, nonstop, designing,
sitting
and
watching
iterating.
Friends or something like that, and all of a sudden Joey will say something, you have an idea, and you're like, wait, actually that'll, and then straight to the drawing board. Whatever inspiration strikes, you can just go right to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was it. Just sit there and design and make shit happen because we both didn't have any money and had shit jobs, and we were trying to change that.
How did you so say you've got this design, and then what's the next process to like get prototypes made? Obviously you have to take them to either a factory or like a metal shop or something along those lines.
So we came up with some
printer
designs at first that we took to like a local metal shop, try and get cut out from sheet metal and then CNC work done too. And from there it was like, okay, this is a good first step, but also we could see that from quoting costs that this is like not viable at all. It's just not possible. So we iterated and designed with like mass manufacturing in mind. So thinking about like including some plastic parts in the molding, and also then looking towards China as well. So we designed up like a whole new adapter from those first prototypes. Chris was going to China for his other work, and he had found some manufacturers out there.
Yeah.
And so like he went
went
into them, set up meetings, got things rolling, and we produced a small run one summer, like I don't know, maybe 2016.
Yeah.
And then we both went back to China right after that, and we were like, yes, let's make more, and let's make them even better. So we ran a big production run and just started trying to sling these things. And it's crazy though, like you learn all this stuff. At first we used the wrong bushings in them,
right? And
these bushings came out like way softer than what they were supposed to be. So we had like 750 pairs of adapters show up that we could not sell to consumers in like 2016. So we had to take every single one of these pairs that were assembled in China and disassemble them in our basement and install new bushings in them and then ship them out to people. And I mean, that the amount of time, like each pair probably took 30 minutes or more.
Right.
like close to an hour.
Now, were you just
hours of assembly.
So are you just sitting down there every night doing it, or were you doing it on like per order? Like, hey, we got an order, let's go fix it.
We nonstop. We're doing it like not just per order, and like there's definitely black mold in that basement, and I started to get like the black lung and coughing and stuff. Like I started feeling so sick, and finally I was like, dude, it's the basement. This is why I'm just feeling terrible. So like
what?
Yeah.
I bet you're like, what kind of chemicals are in this plastic? What's going on? Should we double check this factory? Like, what's going on?
No, it's not that. It was like our shitty place that we lived in had black
basement
mold.
Oh, jeez.
Damp ass basement.
So I love these entrepreneurial stories of just like figuring it out, fucking up, figuring it out, getting through it, like making mistakes, and like have to be smart and find the ingenuity in yourself to like create that way through.
And like desperation too. When you have no choice but to succeed, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
that's it. Like we both didn't come from like families that could support us or anything like that. Like we actually took a loan from someone else. Like I'd ski coached this guy's son. He's an amazing dude. Invested a little bit in the company to help us.
I was gonna ask you about that. Where did the funding come from?
I coached a kid, and his dad, I kind of pitched the idea. He was fully about it, helping us get started, gave us some money, enough to get that first production run rolling.
And does he have a percentage of ownership at all?
Owns a little bit of the company. And
awesome.
I mean, aside from the company stuff, I'm a really good friend of his, and love the dude. So we, after like the first 2 or 3 years, was able to pay him back.
Amazing.
And make this all happen. So we spent enough time disassembling, reassembling Daymakers. Like it was all worth it. But yeah, that's kind of where we initially got some funding to make this happen, because we had nothing to pull from in our freaking black mold cave.
Yeah. So where are you at with the company now? Like you're growing every year. You said you have some that you brought here to kind of bring to TMC.
Yeah.
Was Yoski there?
No.
I think he might be in Hawaii this week, actually. Yeah, we asked him. So TMC is the mogul corner. The TMC Freeriders with a Z. They've been around for like 30 years as like one of the first independent free ski free ride shops in the world here in Whistler. And they used to have a Japanese school above. Every year at camp, High North, Momentum, Camp of Champions, like that's the shop, like that's the core spot, and it's still it's like one of the last independent stores in town. So you were in there today, and you're like, oh, this place is dope. There's like, they got records, they've got toques, they've got guitar stuff, they've got like weird like hunting knives, and like a wall full of like armadas and factions, and like it's just a cool little shop that's just been going, the same family, Yoski, for all that time. And when you're like, oh, I'm going to bring them up, I'm like, that makes so much sense, right? Because he takes care of like those smaller companies too. Like he supports people like you guys, which I think is super rad.
Yeah. I mean, we have a ton of people ask for these in Canada.
Yeah.
And they always like, they don't want to pay customs. They don't want to deal with shipping, any of that.
Where can we get them
in
Canada?
All over. Like, where can we get them? So it's taken me a long time to finally get any sort of shop in Canada to carry them.
Right. Because you're not up here that often. Like you don't have a rep or a sales rep, or
because
that adds another element to, maybe you're not quite at the level yet where you have the volume where you're able to pay a rep to be able to go and do this.
Yeah, that I would actually say some of it too is going back into like our Daymaker story. We grew from there and found ways to, I wouldn't say we found ways to cut costs. We just found last year that dropping our price, we used to be at $350 US. We decided to just, let's go big. Let's drop it to $280 US.
Yeah.
For us, like that's a significant drop in price and made us much more competitive in the market. And also a very important step in getting this product more viable to sell in Canada. I think that like the average Canadian makes probably 30% less than the average American, or more than that with the cost differential.
It's a 30%, like 40% exchange rate, right? Yeah, exactly.
So that 30% exchange rate compounded with the fact that the average Canadian makes 20 or 30% less than the average American too.
Is that a thing?
I'm not sure if that's a fact, but I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
But so 280 is going to be like 350 for Canadians.
So yeah, anyways,
as a thing,
350 was just too expensive.
Right.
And so dropping to 280 definitely makes this much more achievable.
And that still works with like your overhead?
Yeah, it works for me selling direct.
Right.
Now going to a shop, I make almost nothing.
But it helps get the brand awareness and
exactly
stuff like that, right?
It gets it out there, and it also gets it in the hands of like people who want it in Canada and across the world too.
So is it mostly like at the moment are most of your sales DTC, like direct to consumer, like straight
like
straight to the
80%.
website? Yeah. And they just get to figure out the shipping costs and then boom, off they go.
Yeah, we include shipping pretty much to most places.
I mean, sorry, you have to figure out you just got to deal with the shipping costs. And do you ship to Europe and
ship to Europe, Australia,
Japan.
Canada, really anywhere.
Awesome.
And I got pretty good shipping rates and all that stuff dialed and figured out.
And are you guys doing that like back at the house, like in the moldy basement? Or?
Yeah, we've graduated from the moldy basement. Chris owns a house these days and has his own moldy basement to deal with.
He's got a moldy garage now. Yeah,
good time's sake. We love the smell of it. So he's working from home there, and then I work from my home as well, and we just keep our overhead really low.
I like it.
We run it. It's a 2-man show.
That's very cool, man. What's the website that people can go find out about them?
Daymakertouring.com.
Daymakertouring.com. I'm gonna check some of those
and if
out.
you order a pair, it's very likely that I put my hands on that pair. So you can always put a little note request for something, and I might be able to hook it up or write a little hello or a thank you so much from a special someone.
Yeah, I dig it, man. Well, that's super cool. And like, and so at the moment where you're at, it's sustainable where it is. And do you have plans for bigger growth, or are you kind of just gonna let her go at the moment, like where it's at?
I'd say volume wise, like growth for sure.
Yeah.
I've been working really hard the last probably 2 years to grow it. We came out with a new product, the Tech Adapter, last winter, and that was one that is compatible with tech boots. So now we can offer a lighter weight setup for people that's like much easier to use, and that has just headed a whole new realm for us of like breaking into this tech area, so we can get consumers looking for a more high performance setup, and also people looking for that like entry level, I don't have touring boots.
Right.
So we've brought in another 50% of people, right? So
sick.
Or more. I hope more.
That's exciting stuff, man. I was
growing.
actually I didn't know that was part of your. I didn't know that you were the company. You were like, I got some Daymakers. I'm going to bring a few up. I thought maybe you were just like working as a rep for them or whatever. That's a really cool story. I like that.
Yeah, Mr. Daymaker here.
Mr. Daymaker, you're making my day.
Mr. Freeride guy, Mr. Daymaker.
The Freeride guy. Yeah. So the Freeride guy. That's super cool, man. So I'm gonna make sure I put that link for Daymakers on the show notes for the podcast.
Yeah.
And then on the YouTube channel
drop
as well.
it in there. Hit me up if you heard about it from this podcast. I'll give you 10% off.
There you go.
Or I might even ship it to Canada for free for you.
Heck yeah. Well, maybe we can talk. Maybe we can get like a promo code and I can put it in the thing or something like that.
No doubt.
This will come out in probably maybe a month or so.
Right on.
Yeah, let's chat. I'd happy to pump that up for you. Sweet. All right.
Thanks,
so
dude.
there's more I want to ask you about because that's super cool. But you're a fascinating cat, and I want to get to all of it because we got to get back to the things tonight. What I wanted to ask you about. Oh, Aga says hi.
Agnieszka Zemnak.
Yeah. So she was taking photos for us last night at the All Girls event.
Sick.
And I was like, yeah, I'm meeting Giray. She's like, he's coming. I'm like, yeah, we're friends. Like, you guys met in Poland or something like that? Is that correct?
Yeah, we met in France.
In France.
Yeah.
And she told me that you're learning some Polish words.
Yeah, I think that this is still Polish. That Cześć, jak się masz?
I don't know.
Zemnaki. I don't know. I know how to say potato. That's like a word of like, like endearing, like you're my potato, Zemnaki.
Oh yeah?
And yeah, it's lasted that long. And the other person I met at the time was Zuza on the Freeride World Tour.
Yeah.
So like she was there that summer. It was like 2015 at the Les Deux Alpes Glacier in France. Mm-hmm. So met those two Polish girls. And it was funny because like we were both just kind of slumming it. And we'd go ski, then just sit there and sell our tickets afterwards, like real Eastern European style, like sling them to bikers coming by or whatever we had to do. We wouldn't be like we were talking earlier. There's a little spare food sitting in the lodge afterwards.
You gotta make do, man.
Maybe we'll eat it.
Yeah, it's the dirtbag ski life. Yeah, cool. So she says hi. She'll be there tomorrow, I think.
Awesome.
I was like, yeah, come. I'm like, she's like, I'll make sure I'm here. I'm like, he's here for a couple days, so she's pumped.
Yeah, it's so cool, like how integrated into the society here she is. Like everyone knows her.
Yeah, or do you even? I even think it's just like the ski culture, man. Like if you're ingrained in skiing culture, and you go anywhere, maybe you go to New Zealand for a few weeks, or maybe you go to Japan for a few weeks, or you go to Europe for a few weeks, and that's really all you've done, you're going to meet people in that 2 or 3 weeks that you have a connection, like a third connection with anywhere, everywhere. Like you come here, you're like, oh yeah, I know Aga. Or you'll go down to, Mammoth, and you'll be like, oh yeah, Mark, I met Mark. I know Mark. You know what I mean? Like, It's such a small community. Like there's like 1 degree, 2 degrees of separation in the ski industry. I think that's so awesome. Even if it's not people that are in the industry, but they ski every day and they know those people. Like that's like the best part about it, I think.
Yeah, truly is.
I love it when someone's like, you know that guy? I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, I used to live with that guy. No way. You know what I mean? So I like that. So I just wanted to say Aga says hi.
Shout out Aga. Plug in the horn right here.
All right, we got to talk about your film.
Yeah, I mean that's like a perfect segue into it because that's so much of what the film's about on a level.
So what's the film's name?
The film is Of the Black Sea.
Of the Black Sea. And now I'm going to do my best to summarize it. And then I want you to say you're wrong or you're right. And then just tell me about it. So essentially, you go back to Turkey, which is part of your heritage, to kind of understand a little bit more about what you came from and where you came from and who you are as a person. And then how that ties into who you are now as like a skier and that sort of thing. Is that kind of close?
Yeah, I think so. In like a really streamlined version.
Mm-hmm.
I spent so much of my life like in New York and had a Turkish society there, and also a very like general American society as well that was split between. And so I spent so much of my life in this middle.
Right.
And I've been to Turkey many times and been familiar with it, but having no connection besides family.
Mm-hmm.
And what you talked about just before of like that connection that you make through skiing is so powerful, and that it can transcend the barriers of so many things from language to religion, all of it. And so going to Turkey to find people like me is about it. And like, could I find that? Could I find these connections? Because where I grew up,
like you, as like you specifically, like as a skier or as someone who's kind of like mixed race.
No, I would say as a skier.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing on that, because where I grew up in New York, the Turks there do not ski, and anytime I'd be around that society, it was like, oh, you're crazy, man. Like we don't do that kind of thing.
Right.
And you couldn't really relate to them.
Right.
And I mean, sure, I love some of these dudes, but you love them like a brother, and it's not because of like that bond that you share through skiing or something like unique and understand like extreme sports culture, any of that. So I was like, like, do people in Turkey do this?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like part of this quest out there. And then in going there for seeking it, like you can come to more of a peace with myself of like being very sound in like identifying as like this Turkish American skier and being okay being American and also being Turkish, and not feeling like I have to be, say, like one or the other or decide on something.
Right.
It's really just finding yourself and owning it.
That's interesting, because that's kind of a refrain you hear a lot with people from two different heritages, is like, I don't feel like I quite belong here, and I don't feel like I quite belong here. There's parts of either that I am a part of, but then there's also parts of both that I'm either I don't feel a part of, or others don't see me as a part of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you do touch a little bit on that kind of a little bit of that racism in the film as well.
Yeah, we do, for sure. And that's been a barrier through some of my life, but also in the film, like, I want to be uplifting with it too. That like the fact is that can you flip these around, and instead of seeing like what I don't have to belong, let's take what I do have to belong, and let's take those two positives from either culture, add them up, and the fact is that it's more than just adding up to one. It's more than just being whole. When you can take the positives from there.
Was that like an issue for you growing up? Because like looking at you, you look like a white dude. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, he's Turkish or whatever. I'd be like, man, he just got a thick beard. You know what I mean? Like, I got a buddy that looks very much like you, and I wouldn't even have thought twice about it. But, because you're from a Turkish, your father was Turkish, is that correct?
Yeah.
From a Turkish family and that sort of thing. And then people maybe know that, and that's in their brains. But like, did you experience any kind of like that kind of racism or that kind of stuff as you're growing up?
Yeah, definitely.
You did?
Like, and I think that like we focus on like color so much, where it's like it's not just like ones and zeros out there. Like there's this whole area of like the in between of the world, and like probably most of the world is like in between, like not 1 and 0. We're like
Right.
cultures and colors outside of it. You know, where like you might look at, you know, with like Japanese or like like a lot of Asian people, let's say North Asians, like Chinese and stuff, like their skin's a lot of times pretty white. You know, and also like seasonal, like that you're seeing people. So like in the summer, I might be like super freaking dark.
Right.
And like when I don't get sun for a few weeks, like I start going pale.
Yeah,
and then you're
right.
like, all right, you're like a white dude with a beard. And then in the summer, you're like, all right, that's like full on like
You're from the Mediterranean,
Saudi
right?
Arabian looking dude right there with a beard. And all of a sudden the way that you might be treated in certain places really changes.
It's like, sorry to say it like this, but it's almost seasonal. Like,
Yeah, we'll call it seasonal racism.
Like if you're
But
looking,
I mean, like you could put us like together, like you're saying you see a white dude, but then when you put our arms next to each other, this is a completely different ethnicity.
but I'm like translucent though. I'm
no,
like,
but you're white.
yeah, I'm like whiter than I'm like if in direct sunlight you can see my organs move because the skin's like you can see through it. But like I'm like the extreme opposite. You know what I mean?
But like here we're talking about the color, but that's not the thing. What happens is all of a sudden like you're seen like praying. You're seen doing those things that are of like a Muslim culture or a Turkish culture, and like a style of dress, any of that, and all of a sudden it changes, right? And so
if I may interrupt you, and I hope you don't mind me asking questions. Like, so you are a Muslim family,
yeah,
and are you a practicing Muslim?
Yeah, I'm in Muslim faith,
but not like 5 times a day to Mecca. That sort of thing, you know what I mean? It's not like to the full extreme.
I want to say like not to like the full extreme, like if you want to call it whatever is extreme, but like this is kind of where I lie.
Right. Okay.
So like I'm definitely like, it's funny. So in America, a lot of people who like aren't super religious, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm not religious, but like you grew up in like
or they say I'm Christian and they wear a cross, but they never go to church or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's different levels of involvement.
I mean, I see that, but like. Yeah, people grow up in America and say like they're not Christian. However, they like get together on every single holiday and they say a lot of these terms that are like embedded in our language that are Christian. And I'm like, no, like you're definitely Christian. And I feel like that when you go to like Turkey and the rest of the world, that like the rest of, let's say like the Muslim world, like these things are very embedded in their culture too, where you don't need to be like you're very, very practicing like hardline Muslim to be in that area. Like you're still like belonging in that group. You're using these terms that are like coinciding with it. Like your holidays are centered in your nation around the religious holidays. Yeah. And to them, they're like, no, I'm not Muslim. But you're like, yeah, like, you're definitely Muslim. Like you're practicing all those things.
Varying degrees. And it's also like, exactly like you said, it's where you grew up. It's how your culture it is, whether it's in Turkey or whether I get it 100%. Yeah. And then I guess when you're living in a place like the United States and you bring that here, even though you look like this, it stands out because people are like, what are you doing over there? Like, why is that different? How come you weren't, where's your Christmas tree?
That's like always a funny one, like the Christmas tree thing.
Right.
I know that. And like people are just so stunned. They're like, wait, what? So you're not doing Christmas? And you're like, yeah, no, like that's for Christians.
Right. And I think, and I can see it this way too, because, I went to church when I was like 5, but I'm not religious. I don't really believe in that sort of thing. That's my own beliefs, but I don't really care either way. I don't have a strong opinion on anybody, what they do, go for it. But I'll still put up a Christmas tree. But I personally don't relate it to any type of religion, but it was started there and it became that. And then for certain people, like I think myself, I've completely separated myself from any kind of like religious accompaniment, but because it's from a Christian nation and it was developed as such, that's what it's rooted in. And then I think for someone like myself, Christmas is like, yeah, cool, tree and presents and buying shit. and Santa Claus. You know what I mean? I could disconnect from all that other things. So maybe when people are like, "Where's your Christmas tree, man?" Maybe it's something like, "Oh, like I don't maybe believe in that. It's not a Christ thing for me, or a Jesus in the manger thing. But it's like, oh, you don't do a tree, like you're not handing out presents and no Santa Claus."
Yeah. Well, yeah, they'll get weird about that. Like, oh, you're not doing, dinner with your family. It's like, it's Christmas. And, you get like chewed out. Like I grew up like split. I had a Christian family and a Muslim family. Mm-hmm. So we'd like go over to their house for Christmas and be around that and spend it with my grandparents and my mom's side of the family. And then, my dad really wouldn't be around for any of that. And then like Islamic times of the year, do that side.
So you kind of got like double holidays?
No, I mean, no, that's the, like, you participated in them, but like we didn't really get much for like, presents or anything like that. Like, nah, not really.
We get to do both cultures' holidays. This is dope.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we did probably get more holidays in the end. Just, they weren't celebrated up to like the extent of people who were like fully in.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's cool. I
appreciate the short thing. Like, I mean, you share these things like across that exposure to like these different sides.
Right. And then had you always kind of struggled with that, or was it something that's come on recently, like fairly recent for you?
No, I think more so like growing up, that split. Yeah. And so like going into it in the film and like these pressures too, where like I was pressured to marry a Turkish woman or like someone who is Muslim or from that part of the world.
'Cause you have a partner that's not, correct?
Yeah.
And she's in the film.
Yep. Yeah, my wife Alexa's in the film.
And there's a scene in there that addresses that, what you're just talking about.
There is. And I think it's something that like a lot of people can relate to if you're not even split between like a multicultural society. Like, fact is, when it comes to marriage, like there's pressures all the time on people of who you're going to marry. Like, do they come from a Catholic religion or like whatever form of Christianity, or like it doesn't even need to be religious based. Like, just families sometimes don't want you to marry like this person. And so everyone at some point is going to deal with the pressure around it. I think it's like the movie's relatable in that circumstance. Like, you're going to deal with family pressures and you don't have to be stuck in this like bicultural world or of a certain race to relate to this story.
Right. So you don't really have to, you don't have to lean into one or the other. You can still create your own path while, balancing the two.
Yeah, and some people want to balance the two, and some people want to go full on the other side
right. Or maybe not balancing the two, but being able to meld the two to something that fits for you.
Yeah.
This is how I identify. This is how I'm part this, and I'm also part that, and that makes me me. That's who I am, and I'm this is what I am, and I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that.
And that's kind of what this film explores for you.
100%.
Awesome. What did your and you know what? Did you watch Descendants?
Incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of similar.
Yeah,
in ways.
Similar in
thematically
ways.
Similar.
Yeah, I'd say similar in ways. Different movie, different feel, and all that. But man, what a good movie! So artistic and well done. Like, yeah, he's a cool dude. I hope at one point in my ski career I get the chance to meet him. And it's funny, like, coming out with this movie, I've after showing it, I've met so many people like in this like bicultural area, or just like I was showing it in Driggs, Idaho, and this Argentine couple came up to me and they had kids and everything. They're like, "We loved your film so much. Like, we've been up here for like 10 years, just kind of us and this like South American grouping, and completely surrounded by what you'd imagine there being in like outside of the Tetons in Wyoming, Idaho,
rural USA, right?
Yeah, rural USA, and they just kind of really related to what they saw, and you start to like hear all these other people's stories and tales, and other films too. Sierra Schlag's got her film Nisai coming out, or kind of has come out.
I haven't seen it.
Very similar story, being stuck in between like Japanese and American culture. And I believe that Nisai is the term that was given maybe for like that mixed race of Japanese and like white.
They have so many great words for things that other languages don't have words for.
Yeah. What else?
The Japanese language. Shinrin-yoku is like forest bathing.
Oh yeah.
And there's another one, Koi no Yokan, which it's late. I'll show it to you later. I can't remember.
There's one term that I've heard of before that I can't remember the Japanese name, but it's like specifically for snow gently falling in a meadow.
Amazing. See what I'm saying?
I heard of it and it was like, could we please come up with that in English?
Right? Like so many good words, we should just make them up. Be like, this is what this. I'm surprised no one has like made it a thing, like in this era of, TikTok and Instagram and like everybody's trying to find their thing and put it out there. I'm surprised nobody has just started to like create words for English.
Definitely.
And then maybe one, like there's the Urban Dictionary.
Fuck that. All right, so let's drop it in here. Like in the comments section right here, drop us your best English word for snow gently falling.
Snow gently falling. And if you want to, give us your best word that doesn't exist in English and give us what that means. I'd like to hear those ones too. It could be German, could be Japanese.
I love it.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I think about that kind of stuff.
Dude, there's this one word that like I came about maybe like a year ago that I just love in German, and it's just Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude, yeah.
It's so good.
Where you like take pleasure in someone's failure.
Yeah, pretty much like they're like bad luck or something occurring.
It's like someone you don't like or someone that's like a bad actor in your life, and then something bad happens to them, and then you're like kind of happy about it. I think that's the kind of, I think that's a rough explanation of that.
Right.
Schadenfreude, yeah.
I remember I was in Indonesia visiting my brother. There's this German surfer dude there, and we're talking, and that word came up, and he was like, the purest joy to a human. Schadenfreude. I felt so complete after that.
You're like, yes. Actually, I wanted to ask you, so with this film that you've put out, right, you've got 5 siblings that have had probably very similar experiences to you. What was some of the feedback from them, and then what did they have to say about it?
Dude, honestly, with the premieres and this just coming out, I'm still waiting for them to watch it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Are you gonna go home and have like a family viewing, or
I was just in Boston, like saw my sisters there, gave them the link to the film. Don't know if they watched it. They probably would have said something to me if they did.
Were you the kind of person that would like prefer them to watch it alone, or would you like to watch it with them?
I could watch it with them. Like that's fine either way.
Right.
Like doesn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. And we'll see. Like everyone just like berate Ahmet until he watches the film. So let's keep giving him some shit. I don't know, like, their experience, I mean, I'm guessing it's pretty similar. Like we grew up and like we didn't want to go to the mosque all the time. Like I wanted to be out skiing. Dude, I wanted to be out playing soccer. Right. And like kids are going to like Whistler summer camp and I'm out going to like religious camp in the summertime. Like that kind of sucks.
yeah, fair enough.
Just saying, like, and my brothers and sisters had to do the same thing. So I bet they can relate to that. And like the big part of the film is just like not speaking the Turkish language. Mm-hmm. And I know very little of it. And so,
did you ever ask your dad why? Maybe he didn't speak to you guys in Turkish, or maybe he was busy
never spoke to us in it. No. But like we learned a lot of Arabic, and like he taught us so much Arabic. So it's kind of like
Arabic, not Turkish. Turkish is there isn't a Turkish language. It's Arabic that you speak.
No. You're not wrong. It's like a Turkish. The Quran is written in Arabic. Yeah. A completely different language from Turkish.
Okay.
Turkish is for Turks, and so like they're from Turkey, and like the Quran is just like always written in Arabic. Right. So like we had learned how to read Arabic, recite a bunch of Arabic, all that stuff. And it was kind of hammered into me, or like from my dad from a very young age.
Right.
But Turkish wasn't taught, and I was always pretty bothered by that. Of just like I really wanted to like learn Turkish. I don't know, he said that we didn't want to learn Turkish, but I think in his head, like maybe because he only spent 15 years of his life in that country, it wasn't that important to him.
Immigrate when he was younger?
Yeah, but we'd go to these places like in Rochester, everyone would just speak Turkish all day, and we didn't know the language, so we just sit there kind of dumb and confused and not be able to relate. And luckily, like my family that's in Turkey could speak English really well because they spent like 20 years in America or so before moving back to Turkey. And so like kind of caught in between here.
And is that something that you're like, is that like you're actively working towards? Like you got the Duolingo going?
Yeah, I do have the Duolingo. Like after going on this trip and filming this movie, finding these people that like I really love and relate to, it's just become far more important to me to begin learning this language and getting sound in it.
I'll find you as like a Duolingo friend.
Dude, nudge me.
Yeah. No, you know Noah Wallace?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a 100-day streak of like a partner
Sick.
Streak. Yeah.
What are you learning?
French.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. In Canada, where French English is both are national languages, so you have to take French in elementary school and junior high school till like I think grade 11 or something like that.
Trade dope, bro.
Trade, yeah, say sick, but it's okay. It's funny
Les
though.
sick.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very different. So I'll explain. I always enjoyed it, but you only do like an hour or 2 hours a week, so it's like pretty negligible. Like most people, unless they paid attention, they have no idea what's going on. But the French we learn is like proper French grammar, which is very much like European French. Quebecois, in my opinion, should be classified as almost a different language. Because it's got so much slang and the accent. It's like English versus like someone from the Highlands in Scotland, right? Okay. It's the same language, but is it really? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what like Quebecois is. So like when I go to Europe, I can understand what the people are saying. I can get my point across. They have to have a little bit of patience with me, but they'll get what I'm gonna say. Like I'm not fluent in any way, but I know a lot of words. I know verbs. I know how they work. I may put them in the wrong place, and I may but people can understand what I'm saying. I can hear them. I've dated French people, French girls. I've lived with French guys. I've worked with French dudes, like Quebecois dudes. I still have such a hard time understanding anything they say.
Dude, I mean, in America, we've got the South, and I can't understand them there.
Yeah, like people,
and it's not the same language.
Yeah, so it's just fascinating to me. So like, although I'm like on an 800-day Duolingo streak or something
amazing.
like that. Part of it is like I just want to keep the streak going, and I'll go months where I'll like really be into it, and then there are days that I'm just doing it to get the streak, right? Like,
I mean, that's how they get you into it a little bit more, make a game out of it.
But it's definitely helped. It's definitely helped. So I like that kind of thing. So, I'd like to. One of my life goals is be able to say I can speak fluently or at least conversationally, and I'll get there.
Yeah,
I think traveling to those places, like you were asking me if I ever made the trip to Chamonix to live. I've been there a few times, but I think I'll do like a month here, a month there.
The proving grounds for your French and your skiing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Big test.
Yeah. They both terrify me. And then so that's kind of the thing, and that's kind of the same for you. Is like now that you were there, and you're like, I maybe want to kind of improve this.
Yeah, and like I'd been there a couple times growing up. And I was told by everyone there, don't learn it. It's not useful. But that's easy for them to say, like when they speak it. And they're not like caught in that in-between land. And I get it. Like I studied French in high school and middle school. And then,
as well, yeah?
Yeah, I studied that. And then after that, studied some Spanish, like because I coached in Spain for a while. Okay. And I just like went there knowing nothing in Spanish and then just picked it up by ear. So a little different from French where I had like the book
and the immersion
knowledge.
Helps, right?
Yeah, totally. And then now with like, they were just like, oh, just learn Spanish, or really like just learn Chinese. And it's like, no, like I would like to be able to communicate better with the people of my heritage. And I think that's like whatever people can do with that, what they want. But I think like if you're having a kid right now and you know how to speak that language, please speak it to your kid. They're not going to ask you to speak it. You have to be the one to make that choice. Yeah. And like Henny van Jaarsveld, who made our film of the Black Sea, he's from South Africa. And so he was really tied into this film because he's an immigrant to America. And so like his experience coming to America as well plays into this, but he just had a child. And he's like, man.
Does he speak Afrikaans?
He does.
Yeah.
And he was like, he wasn't so set on maybe like teaching the new generations it, but after like hearing my story and being part of this film, he's like pretty set on his child knowing Afrikaans and having like his mother and aunt speak it to their little baby Henny.
I think that's important because that's something I've thought about a lot. Like my neighbors across the street, French and English, like the little kid speaks in both languages. I think if you have a native language and like say you're living in English, if you have a first language but your family and your culture, the place that you live doesn't use that first language, I think you're doing a disservice to your child by not teaching them that language, honestly. I've read studies where like you can speak to a kid as they're growing up. One parent can speak one language, a nanny can speak one language, another parent can speak another language, or you can even teach them like American Sign, and that kid will pick them all up at the exact same rate.
It's amazing.
It's not like one of that. They're just such sponges that it's like they pick everything up at the same time, and it's like, oh, cool, this kid knows 4 languages. All it took was like 3 people just spending a little bit of time, which is super cool. With the Turkey film, you do some skiing in there.
Yeah, we do get to the skiing. I mean, just like in this podcast, you know, we've been chatting. I don't know how much of this has been about skiing, but we will get to the skiing.
Well, that's and I told you that it's the skiing is the overarching theme, but you can only really talk about skiing itself for like a couple minutes before it gets boring.
Yeah.
And then I hit this jump, and then it was, you know what I mean? Like, we got that out of the way when we were talking about those sweet little ruts around the snowmaking gun. But like, what was the skiing like over there?
Dude, skiing's amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, there's this big range called the Kachkars, and it's off of the Black Sea. Catches a ton of cold air that rolls over the sea, creates sea effect snow, kind of like Japan, but
so the snow's coming down from like Russia. And then picks up moisture on the Black Sea?
Yeah, pretty much. And they can get systems from different angles as well. But similar thing.
Are the mountains like right near like the Caucasus Mountains, like near Georgia? Like that kind of range?
Close. Very close by. So like, you have the Caucasus splitting Russia and Georgia. Mm-hmm. And then you have the Caucasus Minor range that's kind of on the Turkish-Georgian border. Mm-hmm. There's some cat operations out there. And then you have the Kachkars that lead right into that, sitting right on the Black Sea. And those will catch a ton of snow. Yeah. And the mountains are big. Like, that's what originally looking into skiing out there, I never thought much of it. And of course, like with the culture of where I grew up of like, you know, Turkish people don't ski. I didn't know about this at all. And researching, I was like, damn, there are some big mountains there. Like, I really want to go ski this place. And I saw they go up to like 12,000 feet.
Wow.
Semi-glaciated. And it's such beautiful country.
And I'm sure there are there little pockets of ski culture in those places?
In that area, very, very faint bits. I mean, there's no resorts in that whole range. There is a Swiss heli skiing operation. I originally, like, for this project, reached out to them. They could just kind of like brush me off. Like, oh, all right, well, yeah,
Send them this film. Send them this film.
I should and see. I mean, I'd love to work with them and go back. Sam Anthematten went there before and did heli skiing with them, so must be kind of tied together with being like a Swiss company. And anyways, but for the film, I found this Turkish touring operation that just started. Like, they had started a hotel there, trying to make it into a ski touring operation. None of them really ski there. They snowmobile, and they were like, yeah, we want to build this whole thing up. So they have had some Europeans come there and ski tour like the year prior, and reached out because I was like, damn, I really want to do this with a Turkish run operation. And I'm going to meet such cool people. They're going to be really passionate about it. And so it worked out for it to be a part of the film. They hosted us and got to know them. And yeah, like, deep connection and friends for life with these people. And it's phenomenal there and across the rest of the country. There's skiing in the Andalus range, which is like, I hope I'm saying that right. It's along the Mediterranean coast pretty much. And that's where this guide that we had met, Ercan, he does a lot of touring and guiding there. And it's super cool. You can go from these places like Antalya on the south coast on the Mediterranean to 12,000 foot mountains and skiing within like a couple hours. And you could even do it in less than that in different mountains nearby. It's a very mountainous country. And there's even some skiing close to Istanbul, a couple hours away. And we do feature a resort there, which has way more of that culture. Like, there's a pretty sick snowboard scene there.
Yeah.
And they had done away with the park like a few years before we got there. My brother went with like level 1 like 10 years ago or longer, and they did have a park there back then. Mm-hmm. But you find it more core there, and then when you get into the random mountains, like, there's really not many people doing it in those far off mountain ranges.
Very cool. I like that. Yeah. And you have plans to go back and do some more projects, or even just more skiing for yourself?
Whether or not it's for a project, skiing for myself, and I would love to do it more like vlog style. Just go out and tackle all these different peaks. And one of my main goals in that, when I go back, would be to link up with Turkish skiers. And so to have them join up with me, let's go ski these lines together, hike it. There's some, I've heard of a couple really cool like FPV filming guys that are Turkish, so I'd love to collaborate with them. Dope. And just kind of do it this style. Like, it'd be really cool. There's like 1 or 2 freeride skiers in Turkey that everyone kept name dropping and being like, oh, no one does this like you, except there's one guy who kind of skis like you. I was like, hell yeah. Couldn't meet him at the time, but next time.
It'll happen. That's
sure.
That's super cool. So, the film is now going to be you're going to be doing like the film like the film festival tour.
Yep.
They said you're here for IF3. You're going to be in Banff next week. You
Yeah.
said, which is great. When do you think that it'll be released for people to watch, say, on YouTube or?
Yeah, on so through Banff, it's going to be streaming for a week.
Okay.
I think they're streaming it one day here for IF3, but by the time this comes out, that won't be around for people.
It'll probably be streaming maybe like tomorrow. Yeah.
And so Banff will be streaming for 1 week, and then we haven't come to a deal or conclusion yet for any streaming,
Like a distributor or anything like that?
Yeah, we're just going to go through the film festival tour. We're going to do one in Salt Lake and Park City in November. So like November 13th, Salt Lake City, November 20th, Park City. And
Is that a specific tour?
It's just our stops that we're hosting like in our home city.
Cool.
And, really whatever film festivals it gets into is kind of what it would be touring, I guess. But yeah, I would love to release it online. Just need to figure out the details of what platform and with who.
What works? Yeah. Well, that's super cool, man. I'm like I said, I've had a lot of people talk to me about it because I was like, I'm going to get Giray on the show, and I was watching the trailer like just a minute before you, like right before I left, just to refresh myself because I had seen it before. So I'm going to see if I can get the link off the IF3 master sheet, and we'll probably watch that. But
sick.
We're stoked that you're here, man. Thanks for coming over to the house.
That's awesome.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
And let's go watch some more ski movies and meet all the crew.
Dope. Yeah,
man.
We're in Whistler, not to ski, but to watch films right now. So next time.
Better than not Whistler, right?
Yeah.
Well,
thanks for having me on.
Well, now you're going to meet all these people where you have the hookups, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We're going to be dialed in, and yeah, I'm psyched.
Me too, man. Hey, thanks, Giray.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.